This is Lab 2 for the Big Data class. So starting off with the Hive portion, used the Seinfeld dataset, created an initial table to store the first set of fields. I had to make a couple of edits to the original data because the actual string fields were using commas as actually part of the contents, so it was no longer just delimited by commas. I also removed the ands and the story by in the writers column, so that way I could create a list, or an array rather. So storing the initial data into the first table, and then we want to create a new table using a little easier method. We're going to create basically from the same thing. We're going to create a new table. We're going to use the select, but we're going to split everything that's in the writers tab by so if there's a comma space, we will split those into two separate fields and store that as an array. Okay, so then asking some of the 5 queries that I was responsible for. Each season comprises what percent of the total run, so I'm going to do a little join here, and from the first query I'm going to get the count of total seasons, so that way I can find out how many episodes were in each season. I'm going to store that to the alias e, and then I'm going to do a join on counting the actual total number of episodes, well, total number of rows from Seinfeld 2. So that is F, and then I'm going to perform a little bit of math. We're going to print out each season identifier, and then we're going to print out the count divided by the total, which should give us the percentage of episodes that made up each season. Here they are listed in reverse order. A simpler query, how many episodes aired in 1997, so I'm going to select however many columns and air date that are equal where the 1997 string occurs in air date. This just indicates that it'll actually occur greater than or equal to the first position, and since the years are all set to be in the last spot, it should definitely be greater than 1 if it actually exists. The result of this query is 22, so there were 22 episodes that were aired in 1997. How many episodes did each director direct? So we just went through and just select each individual director and then counted how many times they occurred, grouping by the director. And here's the output for that. Turns out Andy Ackerman was the top director in there, and then Tom Chirones, however you pronounce that, came in next. And turns out George Costanza even directed one of those. I did not know that. That'll be useful for trivia. How many episodes per season did Larry David write? So they were going to do a select ID from season. Now, since we're using the writers column, that is an array, so we need to do a lateral view and then explode that writers column so that we can actually see each item in the array as if it was a new table, so we can iterate through that. So we're going to be looking for where Larry David actually is in that new column, new writers. We're going to group it by season, and you can see that looks like Larry David wrote things in an approximate normal distribution over the run of the show. What percentage of episodes per season did Jerry Seinfeld write? So here we're actually going to be doing a query similar to what we just did, except we're going to use Jerry Seinfeld to identify the number of episodes, and we're going to count season from that. And then in the first operation, we're going to be looking for the actual total number of episodes per each season, and that's going to be stored as E. The previous one will be stored as F, and then we're just going to do the simple arithmetic as before. And we can see that Jerry Seinfeld wrote 80% of the episodes in the first season, and I think that's 1/12 of the episodes in season 7, and then he didn't write any in seasons 8 or 9. Alright, moving on to Cassandra, since my partner took over Solar. I created a table using the Coursera use case. I created a table using user ID, the courses as a list, and topics of interest that the students would have selected that they are interested in. That will be stored as a list. The data, initially I had to insert it individually. I tried to do it at bulk, but that didn't work, so here's what the actual table ends up looking like with all the inputs there. Alright. So there's me playing with a bunch of stuff to try and figure some things out. And I ended up getting down to looking here, trying to find out how many, or which users rather, were interested in data science, so that way if a new course was offered using the tag data science, these users could be identified and then notified. For the second query, I had to actually come up with an aggregate function. The aggregate function, the first part of it will actually take a list, the courses in this example, and then a particular course, and then it'll go through the list, and it'll count each one that is actually present. So it actually stores a state object, which is a tuple. The first item of the tuple will be either 0 or 1 if the value is present in the list item, and then the second item in the tuple will just be a running tally of how many rows are visited. The final function in the aggregate will actually just then divide the first value in the tuple by the second to get the percentage. Let me just get down to it. So the percentage of courses, or the percentage of users where actually R programming is, where they take R programming, is 50%. And then a little bit more using actually a where filter on this, trying to find the percentage of users that are interested in biology that also took the R programming course. And here it turns out to be 1/3. At the time of submission, I did not receive the other 5 queries for Hive from my partner or the Solar stuff, so I'm presenting only the portions that I was initially responsible for.